Hey everyone, I'm Skyler,
And I'm Gary.
and this is the Nerds Inc. podcast. Today we are talking the latest moves from Warner Brothers Discovery, also the acronym for that, WBD. We're talking about their latest moves. Gary, my friend, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Definitely a little excited to jump into this conversation. Probably not for the best reasons, but definitely excited nonetheless. How about yourself?
You know what, same. It's been a long time coming. I know technically this news dropped a few weeks ago, so we're a little late to the punch, but I imagine all of our listeners are going to want to know our thoughts on it. You
Hmm.
obviously take the time to listen to us, so we're going to give you our thoughts on the matter.
Exactly.
To kind of get started, Gary, I know you're aware, most people I'm sure are aware, if you're a big fan of the streaming giant HBO Max, it is now going to be changing its name effective May 23rd, 2023 to simply Max. Gary, what are your thoughts on this?
This is a dumb decision. Um, Dropping the name HBO is one of the worst things that Discovery has done since purchasing the Warner Brothers property. Um, Most of us in the millennial age group associate high quality with HBO. So dropping that, moniker of HBO for just Max, really, in my opinion, signifies that there's going to be a drop in quality, and that's like my biggest takeaway from it. It's like, okay, you're dropping HBO, so does that mean like you're not going to pay attention to the same details as HBO did when they were creating, their series and movies? I think about The Last of Us and how we talked about in the last episode how much care they took for the characters and the story and all of that. And it's like, is that going to change now that it's becoming Max? Things like that is what's really sitting in my mind when I think about this name change. What about you,
Mm-hmm.
man?
Yeah, no, same. I know that Casey Bloys has been appointed as the chairman and CEO of HBO and Max Content. So this was obviously a decision in tandem with the WBD new chairman and CEO to work with Bloys on this. However, I do agree with you. I think that they're trying to market this as like this is the streaming home of everything from HBO, ranging to what used to be on what is now no longer Discovery Plus.
Right.
And so when you look at the quality of the content, I tend to agree with you. I think HBO is synonymous with excellence. It usually does very well at the Emmys every year. HBO has always had high quality TV, dating back to the 90s when you had shows like The Sopranos.
Yep.
And so it's had over 25 years of dominance really in the high quality dramas and even some of their comedies more recently. So, yeah, I think this is kind of Discovery's attempt to like, well, we need to be able to find a middle ground. We need to be able to bridge the gap. And
Right.
I kind of feel like they're going about it the wrong way. It almost feels like there might be some sort of inferiority complex that
Yeah.
WBD might have towards HBO, and so like, we need to drop this title because people might think that we're HBO and we're not.
Hmm.
And I think I agree with you. I think that's a mistake. But when you look at the content that's going to be coming to Max, you have things like Property Brothers, things like First Home Fix, stuff like Flip Flop, House Hunters, Hometown. So they market it as you get to keep your great HBO content, but we're also going to give you all this, quite frankly, low quality reality content. And
Yeah.
so I think that's where they're trying to kind of show like, look what else we have, as if anybody really cares. If you're there to watch HBO Max and you didn't have a Discovery Plus subscription, are you
Hmm.
really going to take the time to watch that reality TV? Maybe I can reckon maybe a few hundred households might do that, but I think by and
Right.
large, if you're there to watch HBO, you're there to watch HBO. I don't think anybody's going to give a damn about some of this reality TV, but we'll see, I guess.
No, yeah, I completely agree with you on that. And that was one of the biggest issues I had when David Zaslav really started mentioning his plans for not only HBO, but he also mentioned the CW as part of the plans with that as well. And it's really just centered around focusing on reality TV, more as some people in the industry may know it as unscripted TV. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I don't know if you know this, Skyler, but I feel like that is probably part of a plan to kind of circumvent the upcoming writer's strike that may
Mm.
occur because Monday is I think the day, either Monday or Tuesday is the day that the writer strike is set to take effect.
Mhm.
if a deal isn't started. And we all know what happened back, I want to say, what, 2009, 2010, when that
Mhm.
writer strike happened. We got an influx of reality TV, but also we saw a lot of films and TV series that were midway through their series get hurt really bad due to the fact that they couldn't hire writers.
Mhm.
So I feel like this is kind of one of their ways to kind of negate that type of situation from impacting them too heavily. But it's still going to impact them because, a lot of the best content that is on streaming right now is scripted. It's not unscripted. Not many people really
Mhm.
care for a lot of the unscripted content. So it
Right.
may settle out a little bit in their bottom line, but it's not going to overall keep them from like really hurting in the long run if they don't find ways to continue to push out the high quality content that HBO is known for.
Right. And something I also really want to get into is because you kind of see this happen with Netflix every few years when they raise prices. You see it
Hmm.
happen with Disney Plus more recently talking about raising prices. And so you kind of look at their quote unquote tiered plan. And so I think really the most interesting slash frustrating thing about what Max is trying to create, with rebranding itself, is they're launching multiple different tiered plans, which is very weird. Now, I want to
Yes.
get your thoughts on this. So the three price tiers, we have Max Ad Lite, which goes for $9.99 a month, or you could pay $99.99 for the whole year, and you get two concurrent streams, but it does have ads. You have the Max Ad Free, which will be priced at $15.99 a month, or you can pay $149.99 a year. And this will also allow two concurrent streams, but you don't have to worry about ads. And then, of course, the final tiered price is Max Ultimate Ad Free, which costs $19.99 a month or $199.99 a year. And it gives you four concurrent streams as well as HD high quality streaming. Gary, what are your thoughts on these tiers?
Uh, I kind of feel like they went back to like mid 2000s with this because I remember back in the mid 2000s, I was working for DirecTV, and that was a lot of what they used to use to describe their tiers for their channels. Oh, you get this, and you get all these channels and stuff, and then you get this, but you get HD, and it's like we're in the year 2023 now. We have 4K TVs that are out selling for like 200-300 bucks. Like
Mhm.
that's not a deal. So to me, their tier structure right now with that also is terrible, and it just shows that they have either no idea of either the times that we're living in, or they have no understanding of the market that they're in.
Yeah. No, I have to agree with you. I also think like these names are a little weird. I mean, it kind of goes synonymous with calling it Max instead of HBO Max, dropping the HBO as if that's going to make a huge difference.
Right.
Only it's going to make people look at this like, is this the off-brand HBO Max? It's like when you want HBO Max, but your mom's like, we have Max at home. This is what that is. And you look at these tiered pricing titles and it's like Max Ad Light, Max Ad Free, Max Ultimate Ad Free. Like the thing that bothers me the most is like I appreciate that they have an ad version because I think a lot of people are more patient and they're willing to pay a
Right.
cheaper price if it has ads. But to have two different tiered options for ad free makes absolutely no sense to me.
Right.
You're doing the max ad free at $15.99 a month, which only gives you two streams, and they know very well that households like to share their passwords. It's something that we know that Netflix is getting ready to crack down on, probably unsuccessfully if we're being honest. But the
Highly
fact that they
unsuccessful.
have this plan where it's like, oh, only two households can do this, or only two people can stream at the same time, and then, but
Right.
if you get the ultimate ad free, you can have four, and it's like
Right.
it,
Come on now.
it makes it makes no sense to me. I think you're very correct in this day and age to know the market, to know how people stream, the fact that people across many households are going to share their passwords, their usernames, so other people can use it. I don't think there should be this middle tier of max ad free. You should either
I
have
agree.
ultimate and ad light, and honestly like meet somewhere in the middle with the pricing because no one's trying to pay $19.99 a month or basically $200 a year
Right.
for this ultimate ad free just so they can have four concurrent streams. Now, I'm sure parents with kids that go off to college are going to pay for this, but
Hmm.
like it just seems like a bad sell. Like unless
Yeah.
you have a big family and you're trying to really market these multiple households that can stream. I think
Hmm.
that four to six streaming tiers should be the standard. I
I
think
agree.
because the fact that you can have a tablet, you can have a computer, you can have your smart TV, you could have it
Hmm.
on your PlayStation or your Xbox. There shouldn't be a limited number of concurrent streams. I think that is absolutely ridiculous, and it's something that we've seen with some of these other streaming services.
Yeah, I mean, when Netflix first really went full time streaming, they had their tiers where you get the two concurrent streams, and then you get four, and I think at one point it had up to like eight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then you saw how that rapidly changed, and I feel like now like their lowest tier gives you at least four concurrent streams. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, having that concurrent streams is like 10 times more important now than having ads at this point. Like I feel like you said, I feel like more people are okay with handling ads. I think very few people are so uptight about ads now, but
Mm-hmm.
at the same time it's like the biggest thing that's really causing me a problem with this whole thing is really just the whole HD version thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like just because you put what was it $5 more on the ad free and call it Max Ultimate ad free, that gives you the right to be like, yeah, we're going to add HD to this. Like 99% of streaming is done in HD. Like 1080p is kind of like the standard at this point. It's at the bottom of the totem pole.
Right, no one's doing 720p anymore. Like that's
Exactly.
ridiculous. That's even if that's even offered by a company now. I know you see it a lot with
Yeah.
with cell phone carriers, right? So like Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile. It's like, well, yeah, you can get this plan, but you're only going to get 720p download, and it's like,
Right.
what? In what world? We are in 2023. 1080p is the standard, if not more. I
Exactly.
agree with you. I think that is absolutely ridiculous, and I think that this tiered plan is going to come back to bite them. I
Yeah,
do.
I expect them to make some changes later on down the line. I wonder how they tested this out before, like what focus groups that they bring in to ask these questions about. But also, I want to get your opinion on something because it's something I just thought about when you were talking.
Hmm.
You brought up Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile. Each one of them have a plan with one of the streaming services. Verizon has Disney Plus, Hulu,
Hmm.
ESPN. T-Mobile has Netflix. I believe HBO is with AT&T.
Hmm.
Is this going to change, or do you think this going to change how they interact with the different carriers, or are they going to try to set up a new structure to where like if you get AT&T certain plans or whatever, you get HBO. I'm sorry, you get Max ad free or Max ads or with ads for a certain price or discounted.
Right. No, that's a great question. I think time will tell. I don't really have a. I could see them doing that with like newer plans,
Mm-hmm.
like when every single carrier decides to create new plans like within every 6 months just to try to
Right.
spice things up, to try to attract new customers. So I could definitely see that being a thing where it's like, we'll give you unlimited and we'll give you this ad included
Yeah.
programming. So I know for myself, what's really nice with certain carriers, not all carriers will do this, but I
Mm-hmm.
personally have Verizon, and so I can advocate so that when they first had Disney, the whole Disney, Hulu, ESPN bundle, and I
Mm-hmm.
signed up for that, it was the Disney before Disney Plus created ads. So I
Mm-hmm.
was fortunate that I got the ad free version. Now I don't know if it's locked in, but I like to think that it is. So as long as I keep my plan
Yeah.
without changing it, I'm going to stay locked into that plan. So
Yeah.
I guess the real thing is, I'm wondering how it's going to impact those HBO Max subscribers with their carrier. And I imagine they should be able to be locked in, but I can also see a carrier or maybe WBD kind of being dicks about it and going like,
Yeah.
no, they have to get one of these tiered options. It hasn't happened
Yeah.
for Disney Plus yet and Verizon, but I can see it being a thing with newer plans. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess, yeah, if you don't already have an unlimited plan with your current carrier and you're kind of shopping around for different options,
Yeah.
this might be a bad time. Might be a bad
Right.
time.
And something else that I just thought about with this, and then we can go to the next topic for sure. But by the time that Max fully rebrands, I think it's what May 23rd, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you currently have HBO Max and you're set up with your subscription the way that it is currently, I believe they said you have like 5 to 6 months before any of those changes take effect for you.
Mm-hmm.
Which I want to know, in your opinion, how do you think that's going to impact their subscriber base? Because right now, HBO Max is, if I'm correct, one of the top subscribed streaming services. So do you think they'll see a huge drop immediately, or do you think it'll be more of a gradual decline?
I would like to think that it'll probably stay pretty steady. Like I said, I don't really see too many people signing up to watch things that are non HBO based. Now, if you had
Mhm.
like Discovery Plus, that former streamer, and you kind of want to move over for things like History Channel type stuff, or if you're a big fan of any of those home renovation shows, you might sign up for it. But I largely believe they're going to retain their HBO base. Now, once those prices start coming out and people realize, okay, it's kind of moved me to like this similar plan, or I do need 4 streams. That's kind
Mhm.
of been the standard for my family, and you want to move to something like that. I think then yeah, people are going to see the prices. They're going to be like, is this worth it? Because
Mhm.
I think a discussion that you and I have not had yet, and it might be a future episode, is kind of talking about how streamers are impacting really the market by these price changes, because some of these price changes are quite significant. Like I think if you
Yeah.
want all the streams and password sharing for Netflix now, you're going to be paying over $20 a month, and kind of bundled together with other streamers. Like even if you only have 2 or 3 streaming sites, you're looking at paying probably close to $50-$60, if not more.
Yeah.
And I know that was the whole allure to pulling people away from cable and
Right.
satellite, was that you were just going to watch things on your favorite streaming service, and you wanted to pay less, and this was the
Mhm.
best way to do that. And that's the reason why you're seeing more and more people move towards these ad plans that have
Mhm.
ads included, like Hulu or Disney Plus, because people want to find a way to save money, because the streamers are becoming almost as much as like a whole cable subscription if you want to have
Yeah.
everything. And so I think that's the part that I'm interested to see how that plays out, because we've really seen it over the last 3 or 4 years, especially during the pandemic.
Right.
Everybody's streaming now, and they were streaming even more so back then. So I hate to see that the market is changing in this way where it's becoming unsustainable, I think, for a lot of families.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, and that's definitely going to have to be a topic that we discuss in a later episode, because
Hmm.
I feel like it's something that, if you really think about it, you're right. Like the market is kind of changing, and I feel like a lot of this is really more of a pendulum. One way, one season it swings towards one way, then the next thing you know, boom, it's going to swing the next way back. I don't know if we're going to see a resurgence in people jumping back to cable, because I do know there are some cable companies that are creating their own like streaming bundles and things like that. But it's possible that we could see something of that nature kind of take effect sometime down the line.
Hmm. And I mean, we're even seeing it now with like Netflix has been kind of piloting this. And I know Amazon Prime has recently been doing this, where they even have like things that are going to go live at a particular date and time. So
Yep.
the very first live stand up special ever streamed by Netflix was Chris Rock's newest special, where
Hmm.
he addresses the whole infamous Oscar slap with Will Smith. And so
Right.
they knew that was going to be primetime television. So they said Saturday, 8, 9 o'clock, we're putting this on, be there. And that
Hmm.
to me, it's funny to me that like that's like a new thing for Netflix, because it's like, no, that's what cable was, dude. Like that's what DirecTV was. That's what Dish was. Like you used to have to tune in at a certain time.
Yep.
And I'm sure for younger audience members are like, oh my god, it's so cool, it's gonna come on this exact same time. It's like, no, that's what cable used to be. Like I feel like we're going backwards now.
Yes.
Like the whole beauty of streaming is that it's on demand, you can watch it whenever you want.
Hmm.
And so I think it's funny that I know they just did it with J. Cole, his, I think it's called Dreamville, his concert that
Right.
he does in North Carolina every year. They did a live version of that for Amazon Prime, and like Drake
Yep.
was there, and all
It was
these
great.
big rappers, and same thing. It was live, and then you couldn't watch it again.
Right.
So it's like, what what is the point of having streaming if you just need live TV? So I
Exactly.
don't know. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this changes, because it really does feel like streaming giants are maybe getting a little bit too greedy, and maybe they're
Hmm.
trying to change the market back to what it was. But you can't go back at this point in time. You cannot go back. We can only go forward.
I definitely agree with you on that.
But moving on to the other big headlining news from WBD, we have the news that Harry Potter will be reimagined into a television show. I
Hmm.
know the goal that they are looking for is to have 10 years of Harry Potter on television as a Max original,
It's crazy.
where they're going to recast everyone. It's going to be a story where each season of the show is set to be based on each book.
Hmm.
Gary, what are your thoughts on this?
It's about time. honestly. I feel like they are being smart with this. You know, they're tapping into a market that, honestly, if it hits within the first 2 to 3 episodes, could easily blow up the streaming service world for a while, because the Harry Potter movies came out, what, 20 plus years ago?
Well,
And
no. To be fair, I do want to add this caveat. To be fair, the
okay,
last Harry Potter movie came out in 2011.
okay, that's fair. So the last one was what, 10 years, about 12 years ago.
Hmm.
So people still talk about how phenomenal the movies are, and they hold up. So to see it reimagined and to see it come to streaming, where from what I hear, you can do so much more with the books because there was so much that was left out. This is a To me, this is a win. This is a big win.
We're going to we're going to have to agree to disagree on this one, my friend. No.
Oh my.
So I, am a diehard Harry Potter fan. I personally think, and I've said this before, even when they've done recasting for Marvel with Spider-Man, because I mean Toby hasn't even been removed from Spider-Man for 20 years yet, and they have already recasted that role
That's fair.
twice. And that's how I feel about this. I think that there hasn't been enough time. If you
Mhm.
do a reboot of something that was 60, 70 years ago, you can really give a fresh take on it, not just with the technology with VFX, but you can really tell a more grounded or modern tale, so to
Mhm.
speak. With Harry Potter, I don't think it's been given enough time. I think the fact that Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, Emma Watson, who played the original Harry, Ron, and Hermione, they're like still in their like mid to late 30s. Like,
Yeah, that's true.
if this series is not old enough yet, and I think, to me, I think this kind of goes hand in hand with the recast T'Challa, which
Mhm.
I know that you were on board with. I think for some people like myself and other millennials and even some Gen Zers, we
Mhm.
grew up with these actors and these characters in this role. They had 8 movies out of 7 books made. Now, were the movies completely faithful to the books? No, and that is something that the show could touch on, and I definitely acknowledge that. I
Mhm.
think the long form version of television, especially with where streaming is at now, you can definitely tell a more complete tale from the books.
Mhm.
And that's not to say that it won't be a hit. I think just for me, the nostalgia in my heart and how I felt about the original cast and how they really ended the 7th book and split into 2 movies so perfectly,
Mhm.
I think it is too soon, personally. And to me, this does feel like a cash grab, because we even saw, after the success of Hogwarts Legacy, the game, when it came out, that
Mhm.
they were talking about, oh, HBO or Discovery, they want to do this whole, they want to do a live action version of that. They want to make
Mhm.
multiple sequels. And so for me, all I see is this new CEO of WBD. He's looking for as many avenues as possible to just, like, how can we hit these big ticket items? And
Yeah.
for me, and I know other Harry Potter fans, I think it would be much more worthwhile with how successful Hogwarts Legacy is. That proves that you can tell a new story in this world and it can be successful. So why can't we go back in time again? Why can't we find out what happened with the Marauders? Why can't we find out what happened with the origins of Hogwarts? Why can't we
Mhm.
find out even in Voldemort's early years? There are so many other stories to tell within this world that I think, like Star Wars, you can really expand off of it. And
Right.
I think that's also a way to get a cash grab, because people are going to want to see it simply because it has that Wizarding World or Harry Potter moniker. I
Mhm.
think to just sit there and say, oh, we're going to do all these books, we're going to make it into 7 seasons, allegedly. Now, the interesting thing about that is I wonder how many years in between seasons we're talking, because they
Right.
say a book for every season, but they want 10 years of this.
Right.
So that's interesting. But yeah, I think it's just far too soon. And to me, and I know to many other fans, it does look like a big cash grab, which is disappointing.
Yeah, no, that's a very fair take, and I understand where you're coming from in that aspect of it. I really can't argue against that, because when you look at it, like, 10 years is really not a lot of time to kind of reboot the series. If you look at it, they did the same thing with Spider-Man, like you mentioned. Spider-Man 3 came out, what, 2007 or 8,
Hmm.
and then Spider-Man, or the Amazing Spider-Man, came out in like 2011. So there was really less
Right.
than a 10-year time span between that. I look at also kind of like how, with that, you have the Harry Potter series being so popular now because of, like you mentioned, the Hogwarts Legacy. They could really do the first 2-3 seasons focus on that pre-book aspect,
Mm-hmm.
create their own little path. That way it gives a little bit more time to kind of space it out. But I agree with you in that aspect of 10 years is really not a lot of time. So
Yeah.
yeah, I can see. I didn't look at it from that aspect. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I thought the last movie came out in like 2004, 2005. But yeah, um, I'm on board with that. Actually, I didn't think about that.
Yeah. So, like I said, big Harry Potter fan coming from me, man. I know that you're kind of like recently exposed and becoming a fan to the series. I think when this is something that like a whole generation grows up with, and that generation isn't even like our generation doesn't even have a head full of white hair yet. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
I think that there are some things that can be rebooted and it can be done well, and then there are some things that shouldn't, or at least be given some time to breathe, because
Yeah.
I think we're finally starting to see them tap into other stories. And I know
Mm-hmm.
they tried to do that with the Fantastic Beast movies, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what kind of makes me think that they realized, oh man, we already tried to do this before, or
Mm-hmm.
WB, when that was a thing, tried to do this before with Fantastic Beasts. They tried to capitalize off of it and it didn't work. Look what
Yep.
happened. These movies didn't do as well financially. They didn't have the same level of following. The only following for those movies was primarily people that were already fans of the books and the movies.
Right.
So they already tried to have a spin-off. It didn't work all that great. So I feel like that's why they're like, you know what the tried and true formula is? Let's just redo the books. Let's just redo the books. And
Yeah.
depending on the casting, depending on the writing, like there are so many things at play here
Mm-hmm.
that will be interesting to see. Once again, I might be completely wrong and it comes out and it does great and it's faithful to the books and they have a great cast and all of that. But like, to me, Alan Rickman is still Severus Snape,
Mm-hmm.
and the man died. And Robbie Coltrane, I believe is his name, who played Hagrid, he just recently died. They just had like the 20-year reunion
Yeah.
special from the original movie that came out
Right.
on HBO Max like just a couple years ago. And I know that was with old leadership, and now they have
Right.
WBD and it's a whole new thing. But like, to me, it's like it's all still too fresh. And I think that there are some roles like, like your Dumbledore, like your Hagrid, like your Snape, that
Mm-hmm.
no matter who you cast, they could be like the best actor out right now. They could be the best new British actor, because we know they're going to cast Brits.
Right.
And they're still not going to be able to live up to that name. It's going to be a new iteration, which I know you and I have had those talks where it's like people should be able to play the same character, different actors.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I don't know. I think that there is something so beloved about this original series that it's going to be very difficult for people to come to terms with, for sure.
No, yeah, I agree with you on that. That's also kind of like the argument I had for why, and this is kind of just to touch on the recast T'Challa situation. Kind of an argument why I had on why I was not upset with them not recasting in Wakanda Forever, because the biggest thing was everyone was grieving, and grief can take as long as most people need it to take. It varies
Mm-hmm.
based on the person. So I look at it as, okay, the director, the producer, the cast, the crew, everyone was grieving from this phenomenal person who did so much, not only for the people outside the community, but also just for
Mm-hmm.
the people within the production.
Right.
I'm okay with waiting until another Black Panther movie comes out, even if it is 10, 12 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with waiting and having this movie be its own thing, be what it
Mm-hmm.
is. So in that regards, I'm with you on that. And it brings up what, and I'm going to tease the next episode kind of with this for the podcast, but what Disney is doing with some of their remakes. They're
Mm-hmm.
taking a lot of their properties and just jumping straight to remakes. And most recently, they talked about doing a Moana remake. And yeah, we're going to talk about that in the next episode. But like with Harry Potter, I think it's much too soon. But
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a way different story.
Right. So those are our thoughts for the new WB D. I always got to add that the D, right?
Right.
WBD. Gosh. So those are our thoughts on those new moves. As if there's any other kind of big headlines that come out for that, we will definitely talk about it here on the pod.
Mhm.
But Gary, something before we move on to the results of the latest round for the movie tournament, I do want to talk briefly about what we're currently enjoying now, because I know you and I haven't really had that talk on the podcast recently. I'm sure our
Yeah.
listeners do want to know, like, hey, what's something new or something that you're watching that people should check out. So, what are you currently enjoying? Whether it's comics, books, TV, movies? What are you enjoying recently?
So I am currently in my K drama phase. I am going through and trying to catch up on my list and get through as many of them as I can. Right now, I am currently watching Vincenzo. It is on Netflix. It is a really ridiculously long show, 16 episodes. Each episode is like an hour, like literally an hour plus. I'm only on episode 7 right now, but it is really good so far. It is about an Italian mobster a Korean Italian mobster who comes back to Korea to get his money or his gold really, and he finds out like where he placed the gold is in the process of being demolished by this corporation, and he's fighting with this lawyer and the tenement people to preserve the building because he doesn't want them to locate his fortune. It is a good mix of action, drama, comedy, and I definitely recommend it if you want to take your time with TV series. Vincenzo is a perfect show to kind of like watch maybe 2-3 episodes in a row, take a couple of days out, and just come back to it. And it's great. It's fun. What about you, Skylar?
Nice. So yeah, I am currently enjoying two shows. I do want to mention that you and I have both finished the season 3 of The Mandalorian, which we
Yes.
will be also reviewing that in an upcoming episode. So I don't want to talk too much about that, but I
Hmm.
have finished Mandalorian. That's of course on Disney Plus. If you're a fan of Star Wars, definitely give it a check out. But the two shows that I'm very happy are on for their final season, currently on HBO Max, soon to be Max, as we discussed, are Barry, and that's the show on HBO Max about kind of a hired hitman that moves to LA, and he falls in love with acting, and he becomes someone who wants to act in movies and theater in LA. And honestly, the show it lives up to the hype. Anything you've heard about it, it's so good. I mean, they're usually like 30-minute, 45-minute episodes, so it's relatively short.
Nice.
And the cast is just amazing, and it's on its final season right now, season 4, and I'm really enjoying it so far because it's kind of like where the chickens have come home to roost, so to speak, for all these characters, and things are starting to kind of wrap up, and you're seeing what happens when you're trying to be a hitman and you're trying to be an actor at the same time. Like it's this crazy combo, but it's happening, and it stars Bill Hader as Barry. And Bill Hader, for those that may not know, was started out as an SNL writer. He made it to SNL. He's primarily known for his comedic chops. He also got to write, I believe, a few seasons of South Park. So he's
Mhm.
primarily a comedy guy, and he's hilarious in anything that you've seen him in. But in this show, it's a dark comedy. So there's
Mm.
episodes that are hilariously funny. There's some funny moments, but there's also some really dark, dramatic moments. And I've loved this show simply because like Bill Hader is like quickly becoming like a top 15 actor to me because of how
Nice.
good his chops are. Like he's very talented. The way that they shoot each episode, because Bill Hader's actually become a director for it
Oh wow.
over the last few seasons, which has been really cool to go from lead star to, oh, I'm also going to be behind the
Right.
camera. And they're really good at doing like these really long continuous shots. The way
Oh,
that they
nice.
utilize sound is really cool. So I think that they're very innovative with their filming techniques with this show, that I think for a dark comedy that's on HBO Max, it's not something that we're used to seeing, and that's why it's been so successful. So definitely give Barry a check out. It's on its 4th season, but you can definitely binge the other 3 seasons pretty quickly.
I'm adding that to my list.
Definitely. I highly recommend it. And then last but not least, I'm also really enjoying Succession, which is on its final and also its 4th season on HBO Max. And that, of course, is about the Roy family vying for control of their father's company. And yeah, I mean, you have Brian Cox in it, Jeremy Strong, Kieran Culkin, which is Macaulay Culkin's brother, who's a really freaking amazing actor, and then Sarah Snook. They're kind of like the leads. Also, notable shout out to Matthew McFadden. All these names, you can look them up on IMDb, but they're really, really talented. I said it before, I'll say it again. This is the best ensemble cast I've ever seen on a show.
Nice.
Just from top to bottom, everybody brings their A game. It's a really emotional final season. So even some of the events that have happened have been like, wow, like we're only like halfway through the season and like there's already been like a major death, like
Wow.
something that, you would normally expect for like a season finale or the episode before.
Oh man.
We're getting it episode 3 of season 4,
Jeez.
So yeah, it's just been so good. If you really appreciate a good drama or good acting or witty banter, I definitely recommend Succession. It is kind of like the rich, powerful elite and kind of how they do their inner workings, and the writing for the show is phenomenal. Like they're cussing up a storm every episode, but they're really good at like making quips at each other. So they're like digging and they're roasting each other, and it's just
Nice.
a very, very well written show. And Gary, I think for someone like yourself who's a writer, you'd really appreciate the writing.
Yeah, after you mentioned it as one of your top most anticipated shows of 2023, I added it to my list for sure. I actually moved it up some. So, yeah, once I kind of finish this K drama binge, I'm going to jump into Succession for sure.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, so we've kind of let you guys know what we're currently enjoying, so definitely give those a check out. Now, Gary, let's of course get to our movie tournament. We just finished the West's pre-round voting number 4, and
Yes.
then we're going to move on to the quarterfinals. So this is a big moment. Why
Mhm.
don't you tell the people who the matchups were and who won?
So this was actually closer than I anticipated. We even had a tie. We had to do an executive decision on this. That's how crazy it was. But this was kind of our superhero horror region. So the first matchup we had Cloverfield facing off against Insidious. We had Devil facing off against Poltergeist. Hereditary versus Smile. And we had The Dark Knight facing off against Iron Man 2. So, as I said, this was really close. But Cloverfield facing off against Insidious was literally a tie. So, what we decided to do, since Skyler and I run the tournament, we decided that since both of us voted for Insidious, we're going to push Insidious through.
Wah,
Uh,
wah.
so, sorry for those 7 people that voted for Cloverfield, but Insidious won.
Yes.
We got Poltergeist beating out Devil 10-4. Hereditary beating out Smile 10-5. And then the people did not disappoint. The Dark Knight, Dog Walt, Iron Man 2, 14-1. So thank you guys for not letting us down. All right. So the next round will be the quarterfinals, and we're going to go back to the East region. And this matchup is going to be The Social Network facing off against Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. Argo facing off against The Revenant. Interstellar facing off against Peppermint. And then Watchmen versus The Harder They Fall. So, Skyler,
Ooh.
before we jump into a preview for our full preview for next week, what are your thoughts on this most recent bracket and how it shook out?
Yeah, I'm really surprised that Cloverfield and Insidious tied. I thought for sure one would come out above the other, but a part of me was always been kind of nervous that like, oh yeah, like one of these days, one of these are going to tie and we're going to have to make a decision,
Right.
which I'm glad, yes, if you're a fan of Cloverfield over Insidious, more power to you. Once again, this is just for fun. We just enjoy this. So we did push through Insidious because we believe it's the better movie, but once
Agreed.
again, subjective. Yeah, I mean, Poltergeist obliterated Devil. Hereditary beating Smile, surprising. I personally have not seen Hereditary, so I can't say. I have heard it's a very gruesome movie, and I think that's probably why I've avoided seeing it, because I'm like, I don't know if my stomach can take this today. It kind of seemed
Right.
like one of those movies where you got to go in and you don't go in on a full stomach kind of deal. The Dark Knight, of course, it better have. In fact, the one person that voted for Iron Man 2, I'm convinced you're just trolling us. If you
Literally.
listen to this podcast and you voted for Iron Man 2 over The Dark Knight, you got to be trolling. You got to. That is hard to believe because if you've seen these two movies, they are not even in the same ballpark.
Exactly.
In fact, all of the Iron Man sequels, I think we could agree, have been mid at best.
Yeah, that's being
compared to
generous.
Yeah, right. Compared to the Dark Knight. Now, the upcoming bracket, I think this is where it starts to get really interesting, right? This is
Yes.
a long tournament, but now we're starting to get into those quarterfinals. And now the ones that won last time are kind of in these new brackets. So I think
Hmm.
this is where things are going to get interesting. I think there's a lot more, heavy hitters in these matchups. So it's going to be
I
really
agree.
cool to see how it shakes out. So make sure every Wednesday, these episodes come out on Tuesday. Make sure on Wednesday, you have from Wednesday to Friday night to vote for the newest bracket and tournament. Of course, the link is going to be in our show notes. We're going to post about it on social media. So you will always know when the voting is live, but keep voting for sure.
Yes, definitely. It's been a great episode, Skyler.
It has. Do you have any final thoughts today, my friend?
If any executive from WBD somehow magically listens to this podcast, call me and I will help fix what you're messing up right now.
No, honestly, that's what we need is as this podcast begins to expand, through word of mouth, and we already have so many loyal listeners every week, so we really do appreciate you guys. If you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, keep passing it along, keep passing on
Hmm.
the podcast, because yeah, wouldn't it be cool for one day, an executive of one of these streamers or someone who works for one of these streamers to be able to come on the podcast and kind of talk
Right.
about the inner workings of it. I mean, that would be amazing. Like if they listen to us, they might be like, all right, these guys and their opinions, we don't like them, but they might, and they might appreciate it. So
Right.
definitely keep spreading the word, you guys. Keep listening, keep voting. We appreciate you. Yeah, it's been another great episode, my friend. And as always, I'm Skyler.
And I'm Gary.
And this has been the Nerds Inc. podcast. We will see you guys next week.